right, any questions from Mr. Lehrman?
We've made a number of changes in the building code that affect the price of homes. For example, adding smoke detectors adds to the price of a home. But you would feel that that would be a good decision because it's a net benefit to the community, correct?
Absolutely.
And if this, do you also see this as being a net benefit to the community?
In some ways, it is a net bet to the community, and obviously, we want to build a high standard of housing, and obviously, smoke detectors as well as many other things play into that. But a tree is a different issue than a smoke detector.
Because one doesn't have benefit? Why are they different?
They equally have. A smoke detector has the chance to save somebody's life. So I would look at that a little bit differently.
And we just heard from a doctor about the incidence of asthma and how that's associated with street trees. There's a health benefit there then as well.
Well, I'm not a doctor, and so I guess I cannot address how trees affect asthma. I had it as a child, but I guess I can't comment any further than that.
We actually had a small developer at our committee of the whole meeting that pointed out that this tree amounted to $1.80 a month. Is that particularly burdensome in and of itself?
No, it is when you look at it in the context of all the other fees that come along with it over time. It all has a cumulative effect, Mr. Wojcik.
I appreciate you bringing up the fees because I was actually wondering if I was being too tough when I considered, that I didn't feel that the fees were particularly burdensome here. So I just went out to do a little research assignment, and you might recall that Rochester was recently named one of the 10 cities for the next decade, a pretty high honor. And these are the cities that we're competing with for the best talent. So what I did is I went out on Realtor.com and took a look at land costs, which would, of course, incorporate all of the development fees associated with it, and just said, why don't we look at the median land value for these 10 different cities spread out over the U.S. And the interesting thing I found is the median lot price in Rochester right now was priced at $48,000. On average, nationwide, that turned out to be $179,350. 10 cities: Austin, Texas; Seattle, Washington; Washington, D.C., Boulder, Colorado; Salt Lake City; Rochester; Des Moines; Burlington, Vermont; West Hartford, Connecticut; and Topeka. Now, if we say that, okay, a couple of these we know are space constraints, Seattle, Washington, and Washington, D.C., we know are space constraints, so why don't we throw those ones out and just go with the ones that have room to develop? It's still $166,000, which is more than 3 times what Rochester's development costs are. So it seems that the cities we're competing with nationwide, we have phenomenally low development costs. Where are development costs particularly burdensome when we compete with these communities?
I think I'd like to see you compare 10 communities of a similar size and then look at those development costs. And I think if you actually spend the time to look at all the fees from those individual communities, I think you would probably find a different answer to that question.
And with regards to tree placement, now the number of scientific studies that I have not seen refuted in any way yet would imply that there is actually net benefit from having the tree placement close to the street. Yet you still don't support that.
Well, I would ask you, would you argue the fact that it also provides a cooling cost to the home, having it in the yard?
Well, I would absolutely agree, and I guess you seem to imply that they're mutually exclusive. Where does that assumption come from?
I guess, what ultimately are you asking for?
Why can't you have a tree in the boulevard and a tree in the front yard?
Well, I think that should be left up to the homeowner to decide.
So you agree that this in no way prevents the homeowner from putting a tree in their yard?
It does not.
Okay, I guess these streets that we put in, they're pretty expensive. The developers know how expensive these streets are to put in, right?
Yes.
Very expensive. The fact that the studies show increased pavement life, isn't that a pretty good taxpayer benefit out of this?
I suppose so. I'd have to look at the costs associated.
Also, why is it that we need to solve all of the community's problems before we can address the problems with new development? Why is it that we should wait to have address this problem until we have solutions for all of the problems?
I guess that is an interesting question. I didn't pose that to you.
You suggested that the city should come forward with a plan that...
I didn't ask them to address the 30,000 in this particular statement.
Let's retire this conversation between the two of you. It's going absolutely nowhere.
I would agree.
I understand both points. Let's get back to the tree issue. Do you have any more comments?
No, I don't, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Lehrman.